The forgotten games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Well, how are you feeling? You got John Riggs here, and sometimes these games just fall through the cracks. Maybe they're games that you played at your cousin's house that you totally forgot about. We're gonna cover a bunch of them in this video. And here on YouTube, you have unlimited subscriptions. So put a Kinsuke Sasaki Stranglehold Gamma on that subscribe button. Check out my online shop where I have my Legend of Riggs hats. I also have the Nintendo games I make. Please don't forget Choo Choo Mimic. And let's take a look at some forgotten NES games. Like the Crayon Conquest. If you would have told me, if I never knew this game existed, and you would have said, oh, somebody took Mega Man, changed the graphics, and made their own game out of it, I would have believed you. But this game came out back in the day, not even from Capcom, but man, doesn't it have that Mega Man vibe to it. Not just how she looks and everything, but even the idea that you can change your weaponry. Very cool game, very neat game, pretty difficult later as well, but I mean, you know, what Nintendo game isn't. The Crayon Conquest, one of those games, if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely do so, and maybe you remember it back in the day, but it's just forgotten. A lot of people talk a lot of things about those Flintstones games, but don't forget about the Jetsons. Come on, man, what do you know about the Jetsons? Well, also Hanna-Barbera, Flintstones was in the past, Jetsons was in the future, and maybe not as popular as the Flintstones games were. The Jetsons is still pretty neat. It plays a little bit like, think of Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, where you can pick up the blocks, and those are your weapons. You pick up the blocks and you can either chuck them in front of you, or you can kind of angle them upward at an arc, or arch, either way. It was a late release game, so it makes sense that this game would have been a forgotten Nintendo game, but still, it's a pretty neat game. But what about some games that maybe did come out back during the height of Nintendo, that maybe you just kind of forgot about? Well, Robo Warrior might make that list. You know, when I first saw Robo Warrior and heard about it, I was like, so it's like, what, Bomberman? And I was like, well, yeah, kind of, but not really. It's like, yeah, you are a man who's bombing things, and your bombs kind of do that same bomb the surrounding area, bomb the vicinity, if you will. But as you make your way through this area, you're dropping these bombs. You have to keep getting new bombs as well. You do have a finite amount, but easy to get more. Drop these bombs to blow your path through the path. That's right. Just like Owen Hart kicked the leg out from his leg, you can use your bombs to blow a path through the path. Speaking of bombs, we got Mighty Bombjack. You ever check this one out? I mean, a little confusing if you don't have the manual, and even if you do have the manual, it added this whole little element to this game that wasn't just the capture the bombs, which happens at the end of every stage. You had this little side-scrolling part of it first, and your super jump, and you're picking up items and weapons, or you know, you gotta make your way to the end here, and then on this final stage, the single screen stage, this was kind of the arcade version of Mighty Bombjack now. And you can just get all the bombs and move on with your life. However, if you pick up the bombs in order from like wherever the detonated one is, you know, lit, then you'll get the bonus points. This was one of those games my next door neighbor had, and I remember playing it, I remember seeing it in magazines, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I mean, I guess it's alright, it's kind of fun. I like how you can just spam the jump button and you kind of float down. That's a huge help. Trog is one of those games that people who have played it, love it, love it, love it, and people who just kind of remember it kind of were like, well, wasn't that one game with like eggs or something? With dinosaurs and cavemen? Well, sure. Not really like a Pac-Man, but it is kind of like a Pac-Man where you have to collect all the eggs to move on through the exit. You have these enemies in your way, you can punch them out of the way, however, if they capture you, they will eat you, which is kind of weird. Trog had a lot going on for itself. It's a game that didn't get a whole lot of recognition when it came out for the NES, but people who love this game, again, like I said, really, really love this game. A fond memory to many. Cowboy Kid, another forgotten game, came out during a great time for the NES lifespan. But I don't know if it just fell under the radar what happened, but man, is this a good game. Well, in Japan they had the Goemon series, and this plays a bit like those Goemon series. Kind of like the Legend of the Mystical Ninja that we would know it as for the Super Nintendo. It plays a lot like that in a way, where you have this kind of overworld-ish, but then you can you can get your upgrades, you can hop in these shops and talk to people, get your items, get your upgrades, maybe even play a couple of games along the way. 2 players simultaneous in Cowboy Kid. Such a fun game. It's one of my favorites. And it's just a game that, man, not a lot of people talk about today. It's just kind of a forgotten Nintendo game. Just like Bigfoot. Yeah, there was a Bigfoot game back in the day. Now, if you're from our generation, Bigfoot, the truck, had celebrity status. Bigfoot, just by itself, I mean, yes, Bigfoot is just a monster truck. That's all it is. But it was a celebrity. Bigfoot's celebrity status was right up there with an Arnold Schwarzenegger or a Hulk Hogan or a Mr. T. And then Bigfoot, the monster truck that used to go on tour and, you know, do the monster truck rallies and stuff like that. And they made a Nintendo game based after it, which is kind of an okay game. It's not the worst game ever, but, you know, it's kind of worth playing sometimes. I love the fact that Yakima is a stage on this, so look out for that one. It's my hometown. Boulder Dash, a forgotten puzzle game for the NES. Now, they have had Boulder Dash on other things, on computers, on other platforms as well, or even versions of games like this. The Nintendo version, of course, that was the one I played the most, because that's what I had when I was growing up. Interesting idea. You're in these caves, you have to get all the gems, but you don't have to get all of them. You just have to get enough of them for the exit to illuminate and move on through the stage. And it has that little overworld map too, to choose which stage you want to go to, or choose which level of each world you want to go to. But as you're digging through, they have these rocks that'll just drop down on you, kind of like Dig Dug did, right? And you have to use that to your advantage too, because if the rock drops on top of an enemy, they turn into diamonds. In some stages, you have to do that to, you know, get as many diamonds as you need to move through the stage. A lot of great puzzle games on the NES. This one doesn't come up as often. It's a forgotten Nintendo game, just like Totally Rad. With a name like Totally Rad, how can you go wrong? Side-scrolling, I guess you could kind of call it a run and gun, because you do have that kind of shooting ability with your hands. You also have the ability to do the kind of, I say magic tricks because the Famicom version is called Magical John for some reason. But you can do these other items too to help you out in your journey. But super fun game. Capcom's Gold Medal Challenge came out in 1992 during the year of the Olympics. And we have had Olympic video games in the past, of course, famously Track and Field 2. Well, they never made Track and Field 3, but Capcom gave us Gold Medal Challenge, which was 92 Barcelona. The unfortunate part about this game is I'm so used to track and field controls, and this has slightly different controls to play this game, so you have, but once you learn those, you'll be alright. Race America, it's one of those games that, like, it's a game. There's actually a Nintendo game called Race America. That's how forgotten this game is. I thought it was kind of neat, too. The first part starts out as kind of like this drag style. You have to beat the guy through this first part, and then it goes into this next part, which is the main driving portion of the game. You do have to shift gears in this game, but yeah, you have your accelerate button, and to shift gears, you actually have to let go of accelerate, hit your D-pad, and then hit accelerate again to, you know, just keep going here. Whoever's in first place gets the first full half of the screen, and then second place gets the little window down below. But if you overtake them, then you get the big window, which is pretty neat. But Race America, it's another one of those games that no one talks about. Bram Stoker's Dracula, gotta talk about this a little bit. No, there was during a time when we had like the Dracula movie, the Frankenstein movie, you know, just a thing to do. Well, they're public domain, so anybody can make a game or a movie or a book or whatever based on them. But this is Bram Stoker's Dracula, so it has that extra little bit of like licensedness to it. It's not just generic Dracula, right? But the game's actually really good too, so it's like it's definitely one worth checking out, I think. And we also do have Frankenstein. Don't forget about that one either. And again, also a pretty good game. It's one of those great games that just not a whole lot of people talk about. But as you move your way through the stages, you can pick up their dropped items, much like Athena. It's weird that I'm actually comparing a pretty good game to Athena, but that's one of the features of Athena that I thought was pretty neat. Circus Caper was a pretty interesting game. It's not Circus Charlie, not the old arcade circus game. This is Circus Caper that plays more like an action platformer. Super hard game this game is. You get one life, like real life, I suppose. You're working your way through the different, you know, rings of the circus, stages of the circus, whatever it is, to save your sister. Just, you know, another forgotten Nintendo game. Archista's Ring may have been a game you rented at least once, and you play the game and it's like, yeah, this seems like just a Nintendo game. Overworld, you think it's going to play a little bit like Zelda, which I guess you kind of can compare any game that looks like this to Zelda, I suppose. But it does go through different stages where you have to, you know, use your weapon to defeat the enemies. After a bit, the key will appear, like when you defeat whatever enemies. You'll get your key to move through the door, move on to the next stage. You can get your items and upgrades as well as you pick up these bags that might have a power-up, or might have your health, or might have a better weapon. And dungeon levels later too, where it's like, well, here's the key, but which door does it go in? And, you know, find your way around. Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight, is one of the biggest lies in Nintendo game history from Capcom. Because it's not Street Fighter and it's not Final Fight. Don't just be throwing random words at me just to say. And you even play the role of Ken, but you're just like, oh, cool, a Street Fighter like action game? No, not really. You kind of punch and kick with these, you know, little blasty thingies that come out of you. You defeat some enemies, you have these rocks that also might have your upgrades in there too. It is an interesting title, to say the least. But it's not Final Fight, and it's definitely not Street Fighter. So that was the biggest lie. When you play the game, it's actually kind of okay. It's just, it should have been called something else, and not Street Fighter, and not Final Fight. I don't have a better name off the top of my head, but pretty much any game could work. I do like this first boss stage, though. It looks like you're like fighting someone. It's like a barroom brawl or something. Werewolf. The Last Warrior. Werewolf was a pretty popular game for the time. I remember this was covered in a lot of the video game magazines. Just looked like a cool game. Bandai made some really decent games. I was a big fan of Bandai for the NES. And this game was decent. You know, I would say better than average, but still kind of averagey. I don't want to say mediocre, but you know, you play as some dude who turns into a werewolf. You know, wolf out. Yeah, sure, why not? We can use that term. I don't know, it's alright. Conquest of the Crystal Palace, another great game that not a lot of people talk about. Is this a forgotten game for the NES? Well, there's a lot of great games on the NES, and a lot of great people talk about a lot of great games on the NES, but Conquest of the Crystal Palace should be up that list for games people should talk about. Get an action platformer, you swing your sword, has an awesome soundtrack, great graphics. It's the ultimate, my favorite style of game for the NES, for sure. You can even, you know, capture, what is it called, coins. Money, I guess. You can even get money to buy some upgrades later on, too. We didn't get Willow for the arcade. We got the Willow RPG, like the action RPG, that Zelda-style Willow game. We got that, but I wanted the Willow arcade game for the NES, and we didn't get that. But we got this, and that's kind of close. Palamades, another great puzzle game for the NES that just it's a forgotten game. People don't talk about it. You know, we had a lot of great games like Tetris, like Dr. Mario. You know, this one just kind of fell through the cracks as well. Maybe just people forgot about it, or maybe people wanted to forget about it. I'm not sure. But you're down there shooting things from 1 to 6. It's like, you know, sides of a die. And whatever side it's on, you can illuminate that side. Now, admittedly, I didn't play this game a whole lot growing up. I played it a little bit later in life when I picked up, you know, when I got into collecting and all that. It wasn't a game I was nostalgic for, so there might be a whole lot more going on later stages. I've only played it like these first little bit. I'm going to spend some more time on this though. But yeah, it's just another one of those games that doesn't show up on a lot of people's lists. It's a forgotten Nintendo game. Just like Demon's Sword. Demon's Sword's one of those games that people are like, what was that one game where you do the one thing and then your sword keeps getting bigger and bigger as the stages move on and on? Sometimes it's this game. This game has shown up for me 2 or 3 times in the past of what was that name of that one game that this thing happened? And I was like, is it this one? Look up footage for that. They're like, yeah, it's that one. Well, that's this one, Demon's Sword. The sequel, Soda sequel, super sequel, what do you call it? It's the sequel to Legend of Kage, and plays just like Legend of Kage, with the jumping, with the climbing the trees and all that. You can throw your throwing star, your shuriken, if you will, or kind of like, you know, deflect with your sword, which will also defeat enemies too. This is the first stage here, but the more you play this game, the longer your sword gets, which is kind of cool. It becomes that demon sword that you saw in that opening sequence. Starship Hector, love me some Starship Hector. There's a lot of great shooters on the NES. Have a 2-minute, 5-minute trial. Go for the high score challenge on this one. Why is it called Starship Hector? I don't know. But I do know that the name Mario is thrown around enough in video game history, so it's nice to have another name representing Hispanic culture with a good game like Starship Hector. And a very good game, too. You can shoot above, you can drop your bombs below as well to defeat the kind of things that are on the ground versus, you know, in the sky. Definitely worth checking out. Galaxy 5000, it's a space age. You can think of, like, you know, RC Prom in space, maybe even a little bit more like rock and roll racing in a way, where you can, you know, you can also shoot your gun, you can jump to an extent. It's decent. That's what it was worth looking at least. Ghoul School, another one of those forgotten Nintendo games that every once in a while, there'll be somebody who will say like, oh, remember Ghoul School? And they're like, oh, you mean like Zombies Ate My Neighbors? Or, oh, you mean like Ghoul Patrol? No. Ghoul School. For the NES. Yes, it was a real game that came out. And it was decent at best. But we're not talking about games that are great or not. We're just talking about some forgotten games for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and Ghoul School sometimes comes up on those lists. Kind of cool. You play as this little punk kid with the ripped jeans. I thought that was kind of a neat graphic, and these giant eye monsters and everything too. I don't know if you have a baseball bat or what you're swinging here, but later you can get like a towel, and you can use that for your weapon to, like, you know, whiplash people with the towel. That's kind of fun. Ikari 3, The Rescue. Well, kind of forgotten because people remember Ikari Warriors for sure, and then maybe even Ikari 2. Ikari Warriors 2 Victory Road, which was a terrible game, but still. Ikari 3 brings it back to kind of its roots a little bit, but also makes it kind of an overhead brawler, where you don't have to shoot your weapon. You can also just, like, punch and kick and, like, you know, body slam enemies out of the way. Speaking of Ikari Warriors, we have Iron Tank. Iron Tank, imagine Ikari Warriors if you're always in the tank. It's just, that's the best way to explain it. Imagine Ikari Warriors that has the tank, but just you play the role of the tank all the time, with your shooting and your like lobbing grenades or the other attack, I suppose. And a very spectacular scene when you run out of health here. Boy, of all the games that looked amazing that not a lot of people talk about, Isolated Warrior is another one of those games that came up with a lot of those lists. I remember seeing it in magazines as well. Man, this game looked cool. Kind of an isometric, walking at a weird angle. It could have just been side-scrolling. It could have just been a vertical shooter or side-scrolling shooter or even a side-scrolling, you know, auto-scrolling stage thingy. But instead we get Isolated Warrior that looks like this. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Just forgotten. No one talks about this game. Vice Project Doom. I didn't even show you the title screen. I just zoomed right through it. Talk about zooming. You first start off with the Vice Project Doom in this kind of spy hunter stage where you're zooming through the car. It's like, oh, this is a pretty neat game. And the whole game could be like this. However, then it goes into the side-scrolling part. And the whole game could be like this too. Instead, you get 2 games in 1. How about that? Vice Project Doom. Gotta love it. I do want to add Millipede really quickly on this list. There were several early arcade games released on the NES, like Joust, like Defender 2, and bringing attention to Millipede, because Millipede, again, we're not talking about like the greatest game of all time. Millipede's okay. Personally, I was never a huge fan of Millipede or Centipede because they used the trackball, and as a child, I was paranoid about using a tracked ball because I was for sure that I was going to pinch my fingers of the trackball, like going back into the cabinet, how trackballs work. So I didn't want to play it. But on the Atari and then on the NES, I was like, okay, well, at least play that version. And it's actually a really decent port of Millipede if you're a fan of the series. Or the game. Magamax was just interesting. Magamax was just interesting. Starts off as this... It's a horizontal shooter. I mean, yes, it looks like you're, you know, on this grid or whatever, but it's just... if you remove the background, it's just a horizontal shooter. But you build your robot. Like, you build yourself in a weird kind of way. Now, if you get hit, then you end up losing those things, which is unfortunate. You can also fall in these holes too and like go into the underground area. But yeah, after a while you end up like, you know, building your entire robot and you can go back up and, you know, just shoot the enemies. Magamax. Remember this game? Swordmaster, another pretty interesting game. Kind of came out later in the NES life cycle, but had great graphics and everything too. You go through and defeat some enemies and then you have to fight like some mini bosses along the way too. So you got your sword, obviously, it's Swordmaster. You got your shield as well. I don't know, it just kind of looked like a pretty cool game, but it's another game that no one really talks about. It's a forgotten Nintendo game. Much like Cyros, that came out way back in the day. And I don't know if it's just because it was like a sci-fi name or you look at the back of the box and you're like, I don't know what's going on. It's like, not really like Excitebike on like little hovercrafts or something, these kind of space age megaforce, whatever you would want to call these things. But you can shoot the other enemies, you can also pick up weapons. It's unfortunate because sometimes like items that are on the ground might be a power-up and it might be a mine. So definitely make sure you find out which one's which. Because sometimes it's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to pick that up or not. Pipe Dream, great puzzle game again for the NES. This game was on a lot of platforms, a lot of consoles. I think it was on a computer probably as well. It was a fun, just kind of pick up and play for the moment. As the sludge comes through the pipes, you can create your pipes, and if you haven't done so yet, you can also destroy what's there to put the right pieces down. So like, you know, just because you accidentally put a piece down where you shouldn't have, you can lay a piece over it, which I thought was really, really cool. I don't know, I thought it was a pretty fun game. Stanley, The Search for Dr. Livingston. Now, if any game should have been Super Pitfall, Stanley and The Search for Dr. Livingston should have been the Super Pitfall we got. And maybe if this game was called Super Pitfall 2, better than Super Pitfall, then maybe, just maybe, it would have got more recognition, or recognition, recognition, that's what I'm thinking of. The controls, clunky. The graphics, pretty decent. I could have been better for the time, but pretty decent. The story, fine. But yeah, this could have been a Pitfall game or something. And yeah, it's Stanley and the Search for Dr. Livingston. Just a game that nobody remembers. It's a forgotten game for the NES. Championship Pool falls under the wayside of when it comes to billiard games for the NES as well. Because we had Break Time, which was amazing. Side Pocket, which is kind of the standard, I would think. And then we had Championship Pool, which was really cool. I mean, as far as like physics and stuff go, probably the best for the NES, in my opinion. The other games are very good too. I mean, if you're into like pool games, which I would play every once in a while, just as a thing. Break Time was probably the one I did the most. And again, I mean, well, I guess you can put Lunar Pool in there too, sure. But yeah, but this one, I would gravitate towards this one as just kind of they spent more time with this style game. Less arcadey, more just like it's actually a championship pool game. What are some other Nintendo games people have forgotten about? I also covered the Super Nintendo games that people have forgotten about as well, so check out the Forgotten Super Nintendo games, and we'll do some more of these coming up quick.